Waves in the ocean swell to rise up and crash against the rocks of a cliffside. Over time, the water alters the very nature and shape of the solid rock. Just as the ocean's waters reshape the rocks, so does language shape a culture. Mark Pagel, a professor and head of the evolutionary biology group at the University of Reading, described the evolution of language as a direct example of cumulative cultural adaptation, or social learning. Language allows people to communicate in the hopes of sharing ideas, wisdom, and knowledge. Culturally, language draws rings around cooperative groups and shared identities, as Pagel described in a recent TED Talk. Also, what is important to a culture directly correlates to the language used to communicate its value. Aboriginals believe language came from Vara who walked out of the ocean to walk across Australia, planting languages wherever she went. About 250 years ago, before the colonization of Australia, the land had 300 native languages, spoken between the 700 different people groups. Out of these languages, she planted Pama-Nyungan, which is considered one of the largest language family ranges in the world, consisting of 200 identifiable languages, according to the Science magazine. Most languages across Australia share similar pronouns and verbs that come from the same set of sounds. But there are fewer cognates, which are words that have the same linguistic deviation as another. For instance, native Aboriginal languages like Gurunjimi in Awaja only share one cognate element, which is the particle that marks the tense of verbs. The varying Australian languages are still bonded by the similar family grouping. Many towns, street names, and slang derive from Aboriginal words. Because of this grouping, Aboriginal myths and urban legends have influenced Australia's culture.
According to writingexplained.org, an idiom is defined as a type of figurative language that is not meant to be taken in a literal sense. These figures of speech are specific to particular languages. Australia, along with all other countries, have idioms that suit their specific history, values, and environmental situations. Environment all influence the Australian language. I didn't come down in the last shower, which was found through the Australian National University. This idiom is similar to the American idiom, I wasn't born yesterday, meaning, I am not an idiot, so don't try to fool me. This phrase was discovered in 1883. It is used in daily conversation and is evident in several Australian writings like the Northern Miner newspaper and the Sydney Star Observer magazine. This idiom can take many other forms in different languages, but this specific wording suits the Australian language the best. According to cultural attributes on aacsb.edu, this figure of speech represents the value dimension of power distance. Australia has a low power distance, meaning the individuals and businesses are treated fairly equally between the authority figures and employees. This idiom shows the unavoidable inequality between people and the judgments that can be made about their actions. People may use this idiom to show that they are not foolish and should be treated as equally as others. Another common Australian idiom found through the Australian National University was to do a Harold Holt, or to do a Harry. This idiom describes the action of escaping or disappearing in a rapid and unexpected manner. This phrase is specific to the Australian language because it ties in with the mysterious part of Australian history. Harold Holt is a former Prime Minister that disappeared in 1967 while swimming at Port C. Victoria. He was never found again, and therefore the idiom became a way to express when someone bolts out of a room. The term is used in everyday conversation and has been seen in newspapers like the Sydney Sun Herald and Canberra Times. The third idiom that Australians commonly use is straight to the pool room, which was again found through the Australian National University. This idiom is used to describe a gift that is extremely valuable to the owner. The phrase was first created in the film The Castle in 1997. The main character uses it to describe a valuable gift that needs to be preserved as a trophy. The idiom straight to the pool room represents the value dimension of indulgence, which was found through cultural attributes on aacsb.edu. This means that Australians value leisure time and try to stay optimistic. As shown in the idiom, Australians praise their gifts as trophies and realize the value that they possess. They have positive attitudes about what people do for them. This idiom expresses how much they care for the gifts that they have in life. In conclusion, idioms are a form of figurative speech that is specific to a culture's language. The history of a culture, what they value, and their built environment all influence the Australian language.